you. So welcome to Trialing to Find Your Ideal Dose. Today we're going to look at step 2, or the phase 2 of amino acids. And that's actually, once you've gotten your stuff, what do you do with it? How much do you take? How do you know how much to take? And I love this little picture because it actually shows, somebody just drew on the pill packet, and we don't have pills like that, or I hope you didn't order pills like that, but they were cute pictures anyway. But this is actually really representative of what we're doing, because when you don't have enough, it's like, I don't feel anything, nothing's different. You can have some in your system and it's still not enough, and you might feel a little better, but it's not noticeable. You can have a little bit more in your system and it's like, yeah, I think I noticed something, but I'm not sure if I noticed something. And then you can have the entry level of the correct dose, and you're like, hey, this is really nice. I like this. And then there's the ideal dose, and you're like, wow, like I noticed this. Like, this is really different. And then you can have too much, and it's like, and actually, depending on which one of them, you can actually have too much and be back up to here and not feeling good again. So this is the part that's confusing. This is the, I don't want to say confused. This can be the tricky bit. And this is why I spend time to be very specific about it. And this is also the place where interference is going to want to come in and go, you know, Jaden's exaggerating. You really don't need to weigh this. You don't really need to weigh anything out. Just wing it. Just take one. Like, it'll be fine. Like, this is the place where manipulation can interfere with you. Also, so one of the things I found is that by working with a scale, and here's a little picture of one of those kind of scale. It's a jeweler's millimeter 0.001 gram scale. When there's something about having a scale that causes your body and being to go, this is exactly the amount, and I'm going to take this amount, and I know exactly what this is, and it makes it so concrete that interference has no room to mess with you on it. People who go, now interference will go, oh, come on, you don't need the freaking scale. It's so much bullshit. You just like dump out some of the powder into a liquid, you kind of shake it around and you drink it. And it's great. Like, it's all too much work to do the measuring. That's the voice of manipulation. That's the voice of interference. And so I want to invite you to not engage in interference and get a scale. You're going to be really, really glad you did. You don't have to use the scale every day, all the time, once you get started. In the beginning, getting your dose dialed in, finding your ideal dose is important to get the scale. If you don't have the scale yet and you're anxious to try it, you can do it the hard way, and you can do it without the scale, and I'll give you a little background on how to do that. But if you have the scale, it locks things in and you'll get a lot of clarity, and manipulation can't mess with you. Here's why this is actually an issue. Taking too much of an amino acid can have the opposite effect. So let me give you a concrete example. Dopamine. So these are my numbers. So for dopamine, L-tyrosine is the main thing that I'm going to recommend everybody take if you're working on dopamine. And when you have the correct dose of dopamine, you feel energized. And dopamine is one of those things you'll know when it kicks in. Some of the other ones you may or may not be aware of it. The tyrosine, when it kicks in, you'll know it, you'll feel it. So when you get the right dose, you're just like, yeah, like you feel strong. It's kind of like being on an energy drink, but there's no crash to it. Like, you feel it. It's a visceral thing in your system. But if you take, like for me, even 20 milligrams too much. And to give you a sense of scale, the capsule that comes in the bottle is 500 milligrams. My dose is usually around 100, 120 milligrams right now. If I take just 20 milligrams too much, I start to feel sleepy or drowsy. If I take, like if I were to take a whole 500 milligram, I would just crash. I'd be in bed. And there was nothing I could do for hours and hours. I would have to sleep it off. So not everybody is like that. And you don't know what you're like until you try it. So some people who are, how do I say it without, I'm going to say it with judgment. No, I'm not. How can I say it without judgment? There's some people who aren't as in their body as other people are, or their system is wired in a different way. That's a better way to say it, where you could take the whole 500 milligram capsule and you'll get exactly what you need from it, and it'll be fine, and you're not going to feel sleepy. If you notice that you're not sensitive to drugs or medications, you might try that once. I wouldn't try it with dopamine. I would try it with something else. But you could try taking the whole capsule, and it may work for you. And you might be fine, and you don't have to weigh anything out. You just open the bottle, take the capsule, and you're good. Okay? For the rest of us who are sensitive to things, or if you notice, like if you've taken a medication or something and it's like, oh, way too much, and you notice you have to cut back, this is definitely for you. So example of serotonin. If you're working on serotonin, for 5-HTP or even for L-tryptophan, which are what the serotonin ones are, when you get the right dose, you just feel easygoing, and you just have this feeling good thing going on. You just feel good for no reason, like the way you're supposed to feel. But for me, especially with 5-HTP, which is really sensitive, which is why I don't recommend people start with 5-HTP. But if I take just 30 milligrams more, and often, to give you a sense of that, my dose of 5-HTP is around 30 milligrams. The dose in the package is either 50 or 100 milligrams. So right away, if I took the dose, it'd be too much. I'd be blown out of the water. And I would feel jittery or anxious. I'd feel worse than I did on my worst days. It makes you feel like your worst days. So if you take too much, it's going to feel like your worst day, but the good news is it's only going to last for a couple hours, and then it's going to wear off. And you know why, because you took too much. So my goal is, how do I get you to find out your dose without taking too much? That's what this process is about. GABA, L-theanine, if you take the right dose, you just feel more relaxed and stress-free. Life just is easier. If I take 90 milligrams too much, I feel sleepy, unmotivated, foggy-headed, blurry, and kind of dysfunctional. Acetylcholine, so if you're working on the brain stuff, I'll just use alpha GPC, but acetylcholine does the same thing. If you take the right dose, you just feel clear-headed, and there's like an aliveness in your head. If I take just 20 milligrams too much, I start to get this mild headache, like a pressure headache, and I feel like you can kind of feel your blood pressure in your head kind of thing. Like there's head stuff going on. It's distracting. Like it's difficult to focus. The endorphin stuff, which I don't recommend that you explore with at this point, but the DPA, dephenylalanine, if you take, it's comfort, if you get the right dose. If you take too much, you feel major stressed out and anxious, which is why I don't recommend you start with endorphins. Let's get the other ones balanced first. So my big long-winded explanation, and the point here is, when you get the right dose, man, it's just really sweet. When you don't get the right dose, it's like your worst day. So like, you'll recognize it. It's familiar because you've had these days, but it's your worst day. Like, you don't want to take too much of this stuff. Questions on that? Okay. Yeah. Miriam.
I tried it yesterday, but I didn't go further down in the sheet because I was so excited. And I was feeling pretty good. But I took the L-tyrosine, the L-tryptophan, the L-theanine, and the CDP. And I took a really nice nap. It was a great nap. It was amazing. And then I read further after I woke up. I was like, oh, just one at a time. Okay.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah. I'm not exaggerating when I say this. I really, really am. Thank you. Yeah. Cool. So notes on dosage. having a more structured approach to this process, for those of you who are just kind of like wing it people, you may feel really irritated by this process, and I apologize for that. But I really suggest that you do as much as you can comfortably do in being organized. If you're one of those people who likes to be organized, then you're going to like this process because I'm going to be organized with you. So interference, you'll have interference that can be inside, like you'll have microorganisms in your gut that have learned to speak through you, and I'll talk more about those later in the course. But like you have manipulation that lives in you, in the planet of your body, and that can talk to your brain directly, and it can mess with you. You can also have entities, demonic creatures. You can have all these energetic things that hang out in your space, or can hang out in your space, that can mess with you. And I have this little bug here character. That's my representation of those guys here. They don't want you to succeed. They actually are looking to have you not succeed. And so the more structured your process is, the more success you're going to have, the easier overall it's going to be. So a little bit of structure now, and then you'll let the structure go. You're not going to do the structure forever. It's just in the beginning to get things accurate. That's it. That's all it's about, getting it accurate. Step 2, you're learning about your body here. So I'm going to invite you to be really aware of your body. Many people are not used to being aware of your body because you've had so much weird shit going on. You've kind of tuned it out. You've had to tune it out to survive. So here you're going to need to tune into it to figure out when you got the right dose going on. So, so the invitation here is that to recognize that you are going to need to pay attention to your body, or you're not going to know when you have the correct dose until you have way too much. And then you go, wow, you know, this is not working. I don't think this is for me. And manipulation won, and you're going to give up. So pay attention and be organized about just this trialing process. For it might take you a couple days, it might take you a week, but then you've got it dialed in, and you don't need to do this complicated process anymore. Okay, you're becoming your own doctor. Normally, doctors and scientists and technical people figure all this shit out. They figure out your dose, and sometimes they do a good job, sometimes they don't. But they usually handle all this. Because the amino acid field is so new, nobody has a fucking clue. I'll be just frank with you. Nobody has a clue. And so they're giving these, they're just guessing at doses. So they're giving you the dose that the most unconscious person probably might be successful with. But people who are aware, it's usually just way too much. So that's why you have to be your own doctor here, because there's really nobody else who can do this for you. And I will work with you on it. While I'm not a doctor, I play one on TV, or at least on your video screen. When you have issues, please email me and go, okay, I took this and this is going on. What do I do? Please contact me for this. It does overwhelm me, not overwhelm. It overloads my inbox for a while, but I'd rather have you have a graceful entry process here and have me have some extra work than to have you struggle with it for days and weeks and months and never quite get it right. I want you to get this dialed in, and I want it to be easy for you. So that's why I'm giving you all this extra support that you wouldn't normally get. So in the beginning, do these one at a time. And Miriam gave you that example of why it's a good idea. Unless you want a really good nap, then okay, maybe. But you can take a really good nap even without having all of them. So, but sleeping it off is one of the other ways to get rid of it. So, yeah. So in the beginning, you're going to just pick one of them at a time. And I will show you a process that makes that really concrete. Take your amino acids before food. So this is going to be a weird dance because you're going to have to do this around your meal times. What happens is amino acids, and that is anything that has L dash, L-theanine, L-tryptophan, L-tyrosine, anything that's got an L dash, is an amino acid. When you eat proteins, they also have amino acids and proteins, and when you digest a protein, your body will break those down and does produce some amino acids. It's just not getting you enough. So you're supplementing specifically how much your body needs to balance the rest of it off. But when you eat, you're going to be taking in more. And your brain has, they don't totally understand this yet, but the brain has a limited access. It only can take in so much amino acid at one time to get from your bloodstream into your brain. And if you flood your body with a lot of amino acids all at one time, it doesn't all get through to your brain. So if you take all the amino acids at once, they don't get through to your brain. So if you eat and take amino acid at the same time, you're not going to know what is causing, whether the amino acid's doing it or whether your food is giving it to you. So what you want to do is do this before you eat, and then you're going to eat, and then you're going to wait an hour, and then you'll continue on with your stuff. So you're going to want to kind of plan this around meals. It takes a little bit of planning, but you can do that. Dosage may need to increase. We'll get, this is information for later. Lowered or eliminated over time, that's later information. Some basics don't need trialing. Vitamins, melatonin, DHE, the extra stuff for the most part. Now, let's just say vitamins, melatonin, DHE, DHA, you don't, if it's any one of those, you don't need to do anything special with it. Any of the other ones, you do want to trial them. Okay? Questions on what I've said so far? Okay. There's one of the,
Jaden, I'm sorry. Is it okay then to take the vitamins with the amino acids, or
totally
separate those two?
Normally you can take vitamins and anything else with the amino acids that you want, just not other amino acids and not protein.
Okay.
Yep. But when you're trialing, because you're trying to see what is causing what, you want to do one thing at a time. So while you're trialing, I don't recommend you take vitamins. Or take them with your food. Don't take anything else while you're trialing. Okay. So there's one of three ways to trial. One is the one I mentioned already, standard dose. You're going to grab the bottle, you're going to take a capsule out, you're going to pop it in your mouth, you're going to swig it down, and you're going to see what that does. Okay? If you're a person who can eat anything, can take anything, and medications don't seem to impact you very much, you might consider doing that, though I don't necessarily recommend it, but you might. If you feel strongly about it, go for that. Give it a try. The worst is you'll have to nap it off. Okay. Minimum dose. So there's two other ways of figuring out your dose. One of them is, I'm going to give you a recommended minimum dose to start with, and you'll take that small amount and you'll consume that, and then you'll just keep taking additional doses of that same small amount and keep adding the numbers up until you find what number is ideal for you. That's one way, and that's the recommended way. The other way, is a fractional dose. You take your whole capsule and you divide the contents of that. Let's say it's a 500 milligram capsule. You divide the contents of that into 6 equal parts, and then you take 1/6 of it, and then you take the second 1/6 of it, and then you take the third 1/6 of it. Where that's beneficial is if you're kind of not very sensitive, that may be a faster way than doing the minimum dose. Because if you do the minimum dose way and your body's not very sensitive to things, it could take you a lot of little tiny doses before you hit your effective dose. So if your body is not really very sensitive, but maybe a little bit sensitive, you might explore with fractional dose. But I'm going to recommend for most people to do the minimum dose trialing, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. The fractional dose is in the booklet in this section. So, overview. Yep, I already said the overview. So for minimal dose, here's what you're going to do. You're going to decide on the product that you want to do first. And I'm going to recommend, I will tell you what product I suggest you do first. And it's usually going to be serotonin and GABA, but I'll be very specific about it. Then you're going to look at the chart. This is the chart right here. You're going to look at the chart and find what the minimum dose is. And then you're going to keep adding that dose over and over again. So let me give you an example. So we're going to go to, here's the page. And these are in the book. And my recommendation is that you print them out, but you don't have to print them out. You could just scribble on a piece of paper if you want. But here's the reason I've done this is I've tried to eliminate errors here. I suggest that if you're working with a variety of things, you start with L-tryptophan first. And if it's low, if you don't have enough, this is how you know. You're feeling worried, anxious, cynical, blah, blah, blah. Basically, you're feeling your normal self if it's low. When you're optimum, you're going to start feeling positive, confident, easygoing, and stable emotions. And it's weird. It's like you just start to feel good for no reason, and you're almost like looking around for a reason. You're like, why do I feel good? Like, because in the past you've needed some unusual thing to feel good, whereas it's supposed to be your normal. What if that's supposed to be your normal? If you've taken too much, you'll feel sleepy, sluggish, foggy-headed. And so if you take just a little too much, which actually it's good to know what a little too much is, that's how you know when that's your maximum. Like, don't go over that amount. So it's not a bad thing to get too much. It's actually not a bad idea. To have way too much, that isn't particularly useful because you still don't know. You just know that the whole thing is too much. You want to know, like, you're trying to find the exact number of what is too much. So here's how we're going to do that. Let me give you an example with L-tryptophan. We're going to go to the chart for L-tryptophan, and the chart says the common package dose is 500. Okay, and the minimum starting dose that I'm going to recommend, and so how I figure that out is I've gone both from research. Some of these have been researched for minimum effective dose, and others have been. We've hired guinea pigs, Jaden, and other people who've come before you who've explored with this, and we've found what is the minimum effective dose. What is their starting dose? So for some of you, the first dose is going to be your dose. Like right off the bat, you're going to be like 50 milligrams. You're going to be like, woo, this feels really good. Okay. And that will be your starting dose. It may only be your starting dose for the first month. And then it won't be as good anymore. And you'll have to take a little bit more. And you may have to up it 20 milligrams, but that's the later process. Right now, you want to find out what works for you here now. So in the beginning, over time, you may need to add a little bit more, but in the beginning, you're looking for your starting dose. So this is the minimum effective dose that we've found. And most people usually start, like for tryptophan, at 60 or 80 milligrams. That's like the minimum I notice something happening amount. That's what this is. That's how I calibrated it for, okay, I noticed something. That's how I did that. So you may or may not notice something, but what you'll do is you come here to minimum starting dose. You go up there, minimum dose. You grab that 50 milligram number, and the number next to it says then add next dose. So you're going to start at 50, and then you're going to keep adding 50 milligrams. And don't panic, because you'll know if you get, yeah. This one's very gentle. So I am willing to increase it in a large amount. So let's go back to the chart. So you'll write, I wonder if I can add it here. Will it let me? No, it won't let me. Okay. I know I can do it. How do I do this? Tools, annotate, text, go. There we go. Ha ha ha. I did it. So I'm going to do 50, and make sure you get the numbers right. This is, and we'll look back at this chart. Oh, I didn't do this in a way I want to do this. Shit, I want to change this chart. Yeah, okay, well, here's a little 50 milligrams is actually, I'm going to change that chart and I will republish this document. 50 milligrams looks like that. It's 0.050. Okay, I will change that chart and re-upload it again in an hour or two. So please give me time and then re-download. You can click any of the same links you did before and I'll send a new link with the replay. And I'll have the new numbers because I want to make this simple. On your scale, it will read 050. That's 50 milligrams. Okay. And then the dose thereafter is going to be the same in this case. Copy, paste. And then we're going to add 50 milligrams to that. So, and we tell you, oh, I tell you right here. Okay, no, this is okay. I don't need to change it because I tell you right here. So use this right here. I've given it right there in detail. Minimal dose from the chart is 50 milligrams, okay? Or 50.50 grams equals 50 milligrams. I'm going to change that. That's confusing. You're going to take this number, you're going to copy it, you're going to put it here. You're going to take this number you're going to copy, and you're going to put it here. And then every one thereafter, you're going to put it there. Okay? So this number is the first blank. Every additional dose is that one. So trial dose number 1. You're going to take, so what you're going to do is you're going to grab your scale. I have a picture of a scale here somewhere. I got it weighing. Where's my weighing it out? Here it is. Okay, so you can take your scale, take a little piece of paper, put it on that scale. And by the way, I've created a video that explains all of this, which may be useful to watch. I go in a lot of detail. I'm not going to go into that much detail because it's a little too much detail for this level. But if you want, you can click on this link in the book and you'll get me displaying in as much detail as you want, or more than you want, how to do this. So you're going to take a little piece of paper, put it on the scale, fold it in half, and you're going to dump the powder. Either if you've got loose powder, just take a knife. If you've got a capsule, just open the top of the capsule and just drizzle or dump the powder on and go until you measure around 50. So this says 0.049. That's close enough to 50. Even if it's like 0.047 or 0.053, that whatever. You want to get kind of in the ballpark. You're going to put it on the piece of paper, and you're going to want to then, you can either make a couple of these or just make one, however you want to do it. And then you're going to take that piece of paper, fold it in half, and you're going to dump it in an empty capsule. So you're going to take the empty capsules that you bought, and if you didn't buy them, you could take this and mix it in a liquid. You could just dump it in a drink of some kind and drink it. You can put it in water, but I'll warn you, it tastes yucky. Some of them taste better than others, but they taste yucky. But you're going to take the capsule and you're going to open it up, and then you're just going to dump the powder into the capsule, and then you're going to put the lid back on again. And it doesn't matter which size you use, just grab and then you're going to swallow it, drink it down. And then you're going to take the first dose. And so that first dose, let me go back to that pink sheet. Come on, I know you're here. There you go. So you're going to take the first dose of 50 milligrams and you're going to wait, set a 30-minute timer. It will actually only take 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, you're going to totally know what's going on with your amino acids. But wait 30 minutes to be safe. Or if you just know, if after 15 minutes, you know, like, wow, I feel great. Or if after 15 minutes, you're like, oh, too much, then you know you don't need to wait 30 minutes. You know what's going on. But if you're not sure, if you don't notice anything, wait a half hour or at least 20 minutes and then take a second dose. So what you'll do is at the end of the first dose, you'll look, okay, so if this feels optimal, if you're like, wow, this feels really good, like I like this, stop and write 50.050 gram as your dose. 50 milligrams of this powder is your dose. If it feels too much, stop. It's less than 0.050, which is unlikely, but it's possible. If you feel nothing at all, which is most likely for most people at this stage, like you won't feel anything, you'll be like, what? Then what you'll do is you just go on to the next step, and you'll take your second capsule of 050. Either measure out another one or have another one all measured out, and you'll take your second one and you'll consume that one, and you'll wait at least 15 minutes, but maybe up to 30 minutes. And if it feels optimal, then you'll know that your dose is 0.050 times 2. So it's 100 milligrams. So if you're like, wow, this is sweet. Yes, this is what I like. Then you just add those two numbers together, and that's your dose, 0.100. That's your dose. If it feels like, oh, this is too much, then what you know is it's somewhere between 0.050 and, let me copy and paste this. What you have now, what you've taken so far, is 0.050 and 0.050, which is 100. Think of it as 50 and 50 equals 100. Okay, so that's how much you've taken so far, is 100. If this feels too much, you know that it's somewhere more than 50 and somewhere less than 100. So the next time you take a dose, you're going to take you're going to now wait. If once you get too much, everything stops and you go to the bottom here. When you feel it's good, this is your ideal dose, write it down. If you feel it's too much, then what you're going to want to do is you're going to wait for this to wear off. Actually, either way, you're going to wait for this to wear off. When you get your optimal dose, or when you feel it's too much, you're going to stop. You don't take any more. You're going to wait for this to wear off. And pay attention to how long it takes your body, if you can notice it. It probably is going to take you 3 to 4 hours for this to wear off. So here's what you do. If you feel, did I write it down here somewhere? Nope. So if you feel like it's optimal, you got it, write it down. No additional work done. Your trialing is done. You know your dose. If it feels like it's too much, then you're going to split the difference. You're going to wait for everything to finish, for this to kind of get out of your system. So you're going to wait at least 4 hours. Then you're going to try again for, let's say we're going to split the difference. We'll do copy paste. We'll do halfway between 50 and we'll do 75. It's halfway between 50 and 100, and we'll do 75. That's halfway between the two of those. Okay. If you feel nothing, then what you're going to do is you're going to keep going. You're going to go on and take another 0.050 dose. And at some point, you're stacking doses. So at this point, you've got 100. At this point, you've got 150. At this point, you've got 200. At this point, you've got 250. At this point, you've got 300. At some point, you're going to find your ideal dose, and you'll stop. Does that make sense? Questions on that process? Or anybody not make sense? I'm sorry?
Your way is way better.
Oh, cool. I've trialed a lot of things. I've learned the hard way how to do this. Anyone else? So let me do clearing. What is all the unknowable, unspeakable, unseeable, untouchable, undetectable, unconsciousness, anti-consciousness, energy fog, disinformation cloaking, Wernicke's commands, booby traps, covert, unseen, unacknowledged, undisclosed energies and frequencies around all this? Woo! And can we put all that in the pile?
Yes, I choose it.
Yeah, I choose that. Anybody else?
Yes, I choose that.
Cool.
Yes,
I choose that. And in the pile, and everything from down below, back behind, up above, way out front, from the left, from the right, inside, outside, everything remaining, all in the pile. Body, let that go. Not yours, not you, not you, not yours, not yours. Let it go, 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 let it go. And can we shrink all that down to less than nothing?
Yes, I choose it.
Yes, I choose that.
And vaporize. Rescind, book, can't reclaim, announce, vaporize, like by null and void, null and void, null and void, null and void. So I know how exciting it is to get started on this stuff, but I want to encourage you to do one thing at a time. So here's what I'd recommend. is that you start with L-tryptophan. If serotonin was on your list, start with tryptophan. So here's my list of things, the order I recommend that you go in is start with serotonin, and I would suggest L-tryptophan versus 5-HTP, unless you only have 5-HTP or your body was like, oh my God, I want 5-HTP really bad. Then try 5-HTP. Then once you've gotten serotonin and you know your dose, and so what you're going to do is, let's say we've done our trialing here. So I've done this trialing, and I find that my dose is, I'm just going to grab a number and say that my dose is 100. Okay? I'm going to write that down somewhere because I want to remember that number. Tryptophan is 100, or tryptophan is 0.075, or tryptophan is whatever you come up with. Okay? Write that number down. Then wait 3 or 4 hours, and then take a second dose of that. So I want to get you on a every 3-hour schedule, or every at least 4-hour schedule. You'll figure out over time, and in the beginning you may not know how long. Optimally, we don't want the dose to crash, like to wear off. What happens is you take it, and it's great for a while, and then it begins to wear off. But it wears off after, like for me, L-tryptophan starts to wear off after 3.5 hours. So you'll kind of get a feel for it. It may take 4 hours. If you don't notice it, set a timer at least for 4 hours, and at 4 hours, take again your dose of 100 and see how that feels. And then you're going to wait 4 hours, and then you're going to take again your dose of 100 and see how that feels. And you want to get to a space where you're like, you know, this is really good. You may get to a space where you're like, you know, this is a little bit much. And so you may dial it back to, say, 90. Whoops, not 900. That would be different. 90. Or you may dial it back to 80. Or you may go, you know, this is that 100 is, you know, what would it be like if I had a little bit more? Like, allow yourself to add on an extra 20 and see what that does. And then try a couple at 120. And if you still feel like, I wish I had a little bit more, add a little bit more on the next dose, on the next round, the next 4 hours, 140. So now spend a day or two feeling into this. You want to do this until you feel really pretty good about 100 or 140 or whatever number you come up with. This is my dose. I love this dose. This is great. Then you're going to explore with the next one. Okay? So, and not the next, so if you've started with serotonin, which is what I recommend, I suggest you go to GABA next. Okay? And GABA is a mellowing thing. Or if GABA was really high, like your GABA numbers are off the chart, or like really high, but your serotonin numbers are lower, you can start with GABA first. But generally start with serotonin and GABA, or GABA first. So I said here, pick one of these two for now. So only do tryptophan or 5-HTP, not both, just one. Then do GABA, and do L-theanine or a GABA blend. Pick one or the other and stick with it. Doesn't matter which one. So the next one, we go to GABA. Where's GABA? Okay, so we have either L-theanine or GABA blend. And we're going to do the same thing. But this one here is going to start at 30. I'm going to put 30 here. And then I'm going to take a 30 dose. And then the next dose, I'm going to take 30 again, and the next dose I'm going to take 30 again, and when I find my right dose, I'm going to write the number down, and then I'm going to try this for a couple days. Now, I'm still taking the tryptophan. So this becomes part of your regular schedule. Every 4 hours, you're going to start taking L-tryptophan. Once you get your number dialed in, keep taking it every 4 hours. Now, we're going to be adding, after a day or two and getting that one solid, we're going to add GABA in either L-theanine or a GABA blend. And you're going to find that dose. You're going to take a day or two now adding GABA in and seeing how that works. And then now take a day or two, once you find your number in L-theanine or GABA blend, now you'll be taking 2 things in a day. You'll be taking tyrosine, you wait a little bit, then you'll take your GABA, and then you wait 4 hours, and then you take your tyrosine, and then your GABA, and then you wait 4 hours, and you take your tyrosine, your GABA. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And once you've gotten those 2, so this is a multiple day process. This is going to take you a week at least. It may take you more than a week. It may take you less than a week, but take your time with it, or you're going to be in bed sleeping things off. So the other reason I put those 2 first, tyrosine can be intense for people. So having tyrosine is something that if you have GABA and you have serotonin in your system already, tyrosine is, for some people, easier received. So your results are going to be more accurate if you do those 2 first and then do tyrosine. That's the reason I'm doing it in this order. If you only have tyrosine and you're not doing the other ones, then go right to tyrosine. But if you have high numbers on dopamine or serotonin, or on serotonin or GABA, then do those 2 first, then do tyrosine. Okay. So tyrosine, again, same deal, but you're going to add smaller amounts. Anything that's more intense, as stronger, you'll notice that adding amount is going to be smaller than your initial amount, because this is telling you this is a potent thing. There's some intensity here. And then you'll do the same thing. So you've got those other 2 in the system, and then you're going to add the 3rd one. What we're doing here is actually, and you get the feel of it, it's actually really complicated, but it's not difficult if you take it in order. And if you take your time with it, it's actually very simple. And it all looks harder than it really is. Once you start doing it, you're like, oh, this is actually kind of easy and kind of fun. Right now, it may seem like, oh, wow, this is really a whole lot. It's easier than it looks. So let me give you one more thing, and then we'll do questions. CDP choline, alpha, same deal, but do those after you've done the other ones. These are, unless you're not doing the other ones, if you're just taking CDP choline or alpha GPC, then go right to this. But if you're doing all of them, do this one last. Okay, so take them in the order that I have listed at the start here. Do them in this order. So you do serotonin, you do your 1 GABA, you'll do your 1 dopamine, you'll do your 1 acetylcholine. If you've, I'm going to change this. Take that off. Don't do this here. Then if you want to go and explore with the 2nd one to see what that dose would be, you're welcome to. Or if you want more, like if you feel like, and usually this isn't an issue with serotonin, but like if you feel like, yeah, I feel good, but I don't feel that good, like start with a small dose of 5-HTP and add to it. Dopamine people, definitely, one of your last things is you're going to want to come back and trial L-phenylalanine, because I can tell you for certain, dopamine only lights up about 8 of the 10 receptors in your brain, or tyrosine only lights up 8 or 10 dopamine receptors in your brain. L-phenylalanine activates the other 2 that tyrosine does not get. So you'll notice you'll want to add this, but do that last. Okay. And then anything else, if you've gotten the brain supplements, do that like a week or 2 after you've gotten all this stuff dialed in. Manipulation will want you to do all of it at once, and then you can't tell what's doing what, and you don't know what's wrong when something goes wrong. By doing them one at a time and spending time with each of them, you know exactly what's going on with that. You know what it feels like when you got too much. You know what it feels like when you got not enough. And then you're just adding another one in there. I used to recommend to people to spend 1 week doing just serotonin. Then 1 week just doing GABA. Then 1 week just doing dopamine. then 1 week doing acetylcholine. So the process would take you a month to do. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. For some of you, that may be the way to do it. If you start going in and you've got a lot of stuff going on in your life, then you're going to need to take your time coming into this. Because like you could only, like if you work full days, full time, you may only be able to have Saturdays and Sundays to do this. So you'll only have time to do one of these a week. If you don't work or don't work a normal job and you have time, you might be able to go at a faster pace. So pace yourself. Don't try to push it. The fastest pace is it's going to take you at least a week to get this far. The longest pace is it's going to take you a month to get this far. Okay. One more piece, and then, honest, really, one more piece. How you put all this together, and then I will do a couple more details after I open it up for questions. What page is that on? I wrote a note, 86. Oh, here we go. Yep. So overall, here's how it's going to look when you get it finally done. Before taking a meal, ideally before a meal, you're going to take the first one. You're going to take, I usually start with serotonin. Take your serotonin. Wait at least 10 minutes, if not 10 to 12 minutes. Then you're going to take your GABA. This is once you've figured out your dose. Then you're going to take your GABA. Set a timer. Wait 10 to 12 minutes. Then you're going to take your dopamine. Then you wait 10 to 12 minutes. Then you can eat. Okay? So you're going to want to put a gap between each one of these. Some cases you can get away with taking them at the same time, but it may be less effective. My suggestion for optimum effectiveness, I still do this to this day because it works just better. Take it, wait 10 minutes. Actually, I wait 12. Take it, wait 12 minutes. Take the next one, wait 12 minutes. Take the next one, wait 12 minutes, then eat. Okay? And that will be a routine every 4 hours. You'll take it, and I'll explain more about how you do that, but I want to go back to questions first. Non-amino acids, you can take at any time. You could take the other stuff with this any other time, just not protein with amino acids. So let me turn it over to you for questions. What's up?
Jaden, this is Michelle. So all of my scores were really high. I mean, I'm like, oh, that kind of out of balance there.
Most people are like that, Michelle. That's more normal than not. That's more normal.
Good that I'm not all alone.
You are not alone. Mine were like yours were, actually.
Okay.
So, yeah. Okay.
So even though there are that high, you really still recommend doing them at that slow pace, just because I can feel the interference. Do them all.
So it's you're welcome to try it doing them all. I'm not going to stop you from trying it, but
just for fun. Yeah.
I've learned the hard way that that's not the way of ease, grace, and flow.
Got it.
But you follow your intuition. Like you may find that it might take you maybe half a day to figure out your ideal dose for serotonin. And then you may go, well, I'm going to try GABA. And starting to do GABA might be fine. But what happens is if you get to a place where you hit what I call a meltdown, and a meltdown is like, and you can't clear. So taking these in too much is like your worst day, but you can't clear your way out of it. Okay?
Yeah, it's counterproductive.
It's counterproductive. But you'll know, but what happens is when you get too much, the trick is then, okay, which one of these is too much? And that's where it gets complicated if you don't have experience in knowing what it feels like in your body. So for instance, for me, and I just recently had it, my body, I'm not going to get a long-winded story, but my normal dose started to become too much. And all of a sudden I'm getting stuff where I'm getting these weird emotional things and I can't clear it. And for me to not be able to clear it is really, really unusual. I know when I can't clear it, it's a dosage thing. So I looked at, well, am I too mellow? No, I'm not too mellow. So let me show you where I'm looking at. So how you know you have too much is you look up here. So I was feeling, yeah, I want to change that because I have more clarity on that. I'm going to re-edit this because foggy-headed, sleepy, sluggish is one thing. You can also feel unstable emotions. You start to feel some of this stuff, worried, anxious. It goes back to this. It loops back around. Too much can also feel like this. I'll re-edit this document and I'll update it recently. So by the time you see this video later, if you're not live, you may see other words there, but I'm going to add more words here. So too much is going to feel like this again. It's going to feel like your worst day. So when if you get too much and you've taken too many things at once, you're like, okay, what is too much? Which one is wrong? The way you can tell is you go back to, okay, well, I've taken tryptophan. Is it this? Am I feeling this? No or yes. Is it GABA? Am I feeling overwhelmed, stressed out, unable to relax, overworked? Yeah. So is it tryptophan? Am I feeling tired, bored, depressed? Like, that's how you can tell which one is too much, by looking at what too much is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Yeah. So you can do that. Yeah, and pushing the boundary is something that we generally like to do. So I'm not going to discourage you from pushing the boundary, but do it from awareness, not from interference. Going, oh, come on, just take them all. You can handle it. You're better than what Jaden says. Yeah, you don't need to take them. Like, if you hear that voice, banish that and just keep being orderly about it. Okay.
Right.
So it's a balance. Play it. Yeah. I push it. I've pushed it many times. There's actually and I'll say this, and there's benefit in taking too much. When you know what too much is, write a note down, describe what too much is, because you'll then know that's what my body feels like when I take too much. It's useful.
Note to self, don't do that.
It's useful to know. I'm not going to say it's a bad thing to take too much, because it's actually beneficial to know, but I'm not going to encourage you to take too much. If you accidentally find that out, then cool. But yeah. Other questions?
All right. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So, Jaden, if we take a dose every 4 hours, so that's 6 times in every 24-hour period. Wake up in the middle of sleep and do it? Or?
So no, I'm not. I would never recommend that you wake up in sleep. That you. Let me show you my schedule here. Thank you for asking that. Let me find the page. Okay, where is that page? It is after this section. No, it's not after this section. Yes, it is after this section. Ongoing. It's right here. Da-da-da. So here's an example of what my typical day would look like. It's different now because I wake up earlier, but I wake up, let's say I wake up and right away, like within 10 minutes, I'm taking the first thing. And actually, this is old. I'm going to change this. I now take tryptophan first. Yeah, I got to change this too. Anyway, within 10 minutes, I'll take it, and then I wait a chunk, and then I take the next one, and then I wait a chunk, and I take the next one, and then I wait a chunk, and I have breakfast and any other stuff. Often, I take vitamins with breakfast. I don't know, my body just likes that better. And then every 3.5 or 4 hours, you'll take them again. And then if you'll get into a flow where you'll kind of work around meals. Like you take them before meals, and you can take them earlier and they won't be a problem. Like if I take them after 3 hours instead of waiting 4 hours, if I take them after 2.5 hours, it's fine. It's not overdose for some reason. I can't explain why. It's fine. So if you need to take them a little bit earlier so you can have a meal, I would do that. Or wait till an hour after the meal and then take it. If you eat them with the meal, you'll find it'll feel like you didn't take them at all because it just doesn't all get through. In terms of nighttime, how I suggest it is if you wake up during the night is to take them during the night. So like for instance, I wake up during the night. I used to wake up and I couldn't get back to sleep again. Now that I take L-tryptophan and L-theanine before going to bed, along with melatonin sometimes, I don't always take it, I don't have any difficulty. I don't find myself awake in the middle of the night without getting back to sleep. If you do find yourself awake in the middle of the night without getting back to sleep, take your L-tryptophan dose, wait 10 minutes, take your L-theanine dose, wait 10 minutes, and you'll be asleep. Really, it works really, really well. So if you have difficulty getting to sleep, take them. My additional recommendation is if you're a person who gets up in the middle of the night to pee, when you wake up, like I'll wake up, I'll go pee, I'll grab my L-tryptophan. I take that one first now. Like that one's a core one for me. It took me a while to find it, but that one's a core one for me. I'll take that and I'll climb back into bed. If I fall asleep, then I'm asleep. The next time I wake up, often for me it's like every 2.5, 3 hours, I'll take this one. So I'll keep alternating during the night. I'll take this one, I'll take that one, I'll take this one, I'll take that one, until the morning. And the cool thing about taking them, if I naturally wake up, is when I wake up in the morning, I just naturally feel happy. I used to wake up feeling grumpy until I took my amino acids and then I felt good. But because I take them intermittently throughout the night, I just wake up feeling good. So I recommend if you naturally wake up, take them. If you wake up and can't get to sleep, take them both. Does that answer your question, Marilyn?
Yeah, yeah.
But don't wake up to take them. And
Okay.
I don't pay attention to what time I take them at night. It's just whatever the next time is I wake up, I'll take the next one. If I took this one, then the next time I wake up, I'll take that one. And how I remember is I leave them in 2 different places. I leave the tryptophan near the bathroom, and I leave L-theanine near my bed. So I remember, yeah, the last one I took was near the bathroom, so I'm going to take the one near the bed. I can do that thinking in the middle of the night. That's how I do it. And I leave the dose in a separate packet right next to the bed. And yeah. Other questions on that, sleep, or anything else?
It'd be great if we could get different colored empty capsules.
You actually can.
Really?
They do actually have those. Amazon has them, but if you can't get, and Amazon may actually ship empty capsules. I don't know. I've actually never tried. Amazon has ones, they have a different colored top capsule. But what I've ended up doing for me personally is, and I will stop sharing so that you can see this in a more close-up version, is, and I do this, it's very low tech. I take, here in the country, in Thailand, they don't have the Ziploc bags, but most places they have the small Ziploc bags. You can use those. They just have a lot of these little tiny bags for putting little snacks and stuff in. But just get a little bag, and I put a little label on it. So this is my tyrosine. Let's focus. Yeah, it's not wanting to focus. Whatever. This is my tyrosine. And so I will, all the tyrosine, all the dopamine ones, so I have my N-acetyl tyrosine. They're well worn. Tyrosine. Anyway, I keep all of my dopamine ones together on a purple colored clip. I really do use the colors. I use my tryptophan meds are on a pink clip, and I use my GABA ones on, and I just have them in a bag. I just have them in a little bag. I label on there. This is how I keep track. How do I make this focus? Damn it.
It's kind of too lit up to see the words.
Yeah, it's too bright is what it's doing. Anyway, what I do is I write on there. Actually, I know what I do. I'm going to share because I have it already written out here. It's in your book, by the way, already. And cravings, here we go. And then I'm going to find where I have that bag thing. Okay, yep, that's what they look like. That's actual pictures of my bag. So what I do is I actually write on there what the substance is. Okay, this is GABA blend. And then I'll write exactly how many milligrams I have. So see, under uridine here, I have 0.125 grams. That's how many grams I have. And then there was a time when I did it by, if you do it by percentage, like you do a quarter of it. In the beginning, I started to do things by, I'll take the whole capsule and I'll break it into 4. Like I didn't know what the doses were. When I started this a year something ago, I had no clue what the doses were, and nobody else did either. So I had to make all this stuff up as I went along. So at that time, I did fractional dosing. And I would take it and break it into a quarter, but then really potent things, a quarter wasn't enough. I'd overdose right away. So I had to break it into 6. So now my default for fractional dosing is break it into 6, but back then I did quarters. But then some things are like, well, it's just half a capsule. Like my L-theanine is just half a capsule. So while you get to a point where you measure it, but then you realize, well, I just really what I'm using is close to half a capsule. It's like, screw it, I'm just going to take half a capsule. So you'll, in the next call, I'll show you the shortcuts for how you make this easier and how you simplify this and like kind of the details behind the scenes stuff. But for now, we want to get the trialing. But I just have little bags, and I put little labels on the bags with exactly how much I took. The other thing that you might want to do, and that I recommend that you do, is to actually, when you're trialing and in the beginning, keep a log, keep a journal, and that says at 8 o'clock, I took this trialing. And at 8, whatever, I took this trialing, and I took this, and I took this. It was really helpful for the first week or so to have a log to look back at. It helps resolve problems. You see my little grumpy interference guy there. It's like, yeah, you don't need to do this. I won't mess with you. Really, this will be really easy. You won't have a problem. Keep a log. This way you can look back at it and you can go, oh, that's what I did. You'll know the doses that you took. So keep track of your doses until you get to the point where you're like, this is stupid. I know my doses. Then don't bother keeping track of it anymore. Your goal is to get to a point where, bam, you get it. You know what's going on, and you're confident about it. Questions?
Jaden?
Yes.
I actually take a supplement called 24/7, and it has some of this stuff in it. And I've taken it for about almost 3 months, and it's made me feel great. It got me going back to the gym. I had more energy, all those things. It has theanine and melatonin and other things in it.
Yep.
So what I did is I added on the acetylcholine. What I was doing, I could probably email you so we don't have to suck up time. But
well, no, this is actually useful. Keep going.
Okay, but there's like a daytime and a nighttime of the 24/7. It has a lot of these things in it already. I'll try to get my magnifying glass on the bottle to see all the things on it, but I realized it had theanine and some other stuff in it. So the only thing that I was missing was my memory and my brain. And when I took the test, that was my highest depletion, was the acetylcholine. So I started there.
Right.
So I don't know that I need to start over, but I probably just need to email you with all the stuff. And
so do take a photo, a non-blurry photo of the labels, and send me the labels, and I'll take a look at it for you.
Okay.
So that's a really good point, and I have spent a year now, at least, doing this personally and measuring all this stuff out. And you do find shortcuts, and I'll teach you the shortcuts. But what I've learned in that process, and having done a variety of these different prepackaged things, is they're very hit or miss. You may find one of those packaged things that just has the correct proportion that perfectly matches your body's needs.
Yeah.
But the odds are so slim that chances are you're getting a little too much of something and not enough of something else. And often what they do is the less evolved ones, and they're getting better at it, fortunately. The less evolved one, this one, just having a day and night is already like, wow, I'm impressed.
It's a pretty new one.
Yeah. But what they often do is they try to put too much in there. So, and different people have different, I don't have a good way to say that, size, different capacities for how many amino acids can get shuttled through to the brain. So for some people, it'll work fine. For some people, it won't work. In most cases, you're almost always shorting yourself on something. The odds that each one of those proportions are exactly ideal for you is highly unlikely, but always possible. Worst case scenario, what you could do is you could take those and supplement with additional of whatever is low. So, like for instance, I doubt that tyrosine, well, I don't know, until I see the label, I don't want to make judgment on it, but I can look at the label and tell you whether it's turning on all the transmitters or not. But what makes this different than any of the other programs is it's targeted, because it's finding exactly what your body needs for dopamine, and exactly what your body needs for serotonin, exactly what your body needs for GABA. And it's custom for you. Whereas the prepackaged things are really hit or miss. And when you take them all at once, it's hit or miss at which one is going to get into your brain and which one is not. So you may find some days it works well and other days it doesn't work as well, because there's a variance for how much gets through on one day versus how much gets through on another day. Whereas if you take them individually, there's no variance. It's a very solid thing.
Yeah, and I've kind of seen that. I really have had a ton more energy over the last 2 months, and then it's starting to kind of dissipate off. So you might want to look at even the dopamine, your dopamine ones, the tyrosine and L-phenylalanine. Okay.
Yeah, because what I noticed for me, after a couple of months, there's your starting dose, and that'll last for a couple of months, and then you may need more after a couple of months, and we'll talk about that on the next call. But so you're kind of in that stage.
Okay, I'll email you with the stuff.
Cool. Yeah, great question though. Thank you. Anyone else? Questions? So the only other thing that I think that I haven't, I'll skim it again and see if I've said everything that I wanted to say. Being consistent with your amino acids. In the beginning, I did it kind of intuitively, because I thought, wow, I'm such an intuitive person and I can do this. And then I found that manipulation messed with me about that. It's like, fuck, okay. So what I end up doing is I take my phone, and I've got an app. And if you're on iPhone, there's an app called Timer Plus app. That's literally the name of it. It's in your book, Timer Plus app. By the way, what I'm showing you on the screen is literally the ebook, version 8.4. This should be the most recent version that you have. And it has the capacity, and if you're in, you're not in, if you're in a, what do they call it? If you're in, the other one, Android. If you're in an Android phone or in another one, you're looking for an interval timer or a multiple interval timer on your phone. And what an interval timer does is, so here's my, let me zoom in, plus. This is exactly what it looks like. This is a screenshot. So my tyrosine is set to go off for me every 3 minutes and 3 hours and 5 minutes is what I found is when I start to feel tyrosine. You can feel when it starts to go down. You start to feel like, oh, I'm running down. And I start to feel like, oh, I need sugar. That's what my body does. Oh, I need sugar. That's how I know my tyrosine's running out. Oh, I need sugar. I set, this is different now. Obviously, this was set, this is when I did 4 hours. So let's say it was 4 hours. You set the timer for a set amount of time, and then your tyrosine alarm will go off every however long that is, every 4 hours, every 3.5 hours. Mine is every 3 hours and 15 minutes. I think it's every 3 hours and 15 minutes. And then that alarm goes off, and I have a different alarm for tyrosine, serotonin, and GABA. So basically what I do is in the morning, I'll take my first thing, I'll start the alarm. I actually have an alarm now for 12 minutes. I have one of these alarms for 12 minutes. I'll set my alarm for 12 minutes. My 12-minute alarm goes off. I'll take my next one, serotonin, let's say. And then I'll set my 12-minute alarm again. And I set my serotonin alarm. And then 12-minute alarm goes off. I turn that off. I set my GABA. And I take my GABA. I now have my tyrosine, serotonin, GABA 12 minutes apart, spaced out, and I've told those alarms to repeat themselves basically every 3.5 hours, every 4 hours, however long it was, for 4 times. So I can tell it to repeat serotonin for, say, 3 times, because I don't take that one way late at night, but I take serotonin way late at night. So I'll like, you can just tell it to all day long. When my alarm goes off, I grab my bag and I take one of these 3. Okay, that's how I do it. It's as foolproof as I can make it. It's as interference proof as I can make it. I don't have to look at the time. My phone does it. As long as I have my alarm turned off, if it's on mute, then I forget, and then I go, oh, I need sugar. It's like, okay, I probably have my phone on mute, and I do. So I suggest you get a timer, put it on your phone, because you always have it with you if you have a phone always with you, and keep track of it that way. I don't run this at night. I do not wake up to take my pills. I never wake up to take my pills. If I happen to wake up, I then take pills. Questions about that? Okay. So happy exploring. Please email me when you have questions or concerns. If you have a product that's unusual or something you want more advice about, please email me. I am deliberately providing this support. I want your entry into this process to be graceful and easy and fun, and I want you to find your right dose. And recognize that manipulation will interfere, and there are times where we need to do a little bit of clearing. So if you have wonky stuff going on, contact me and we'll get it ironed out. Okay, thank you so much for joining me, and we will see you next week on the 3rd installment, where we're going to look at the nuts and bolts, the details of like the whole everyday thing, and what the long-term picture looks like, and blah, 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 and any other questions you have. Alrighty?
Thank you, Jay.
You're welcome. Cool. So,
I would like to.
Yeah. Go.
I just meant to say I noticed today that I was reading today all about this amino acids, and I ordered all of my aminos. And the thing is, before I was reading it, I was looking at it, and everything was blur. Like my mind was not concentrated, like zero. Like it was like, oh my God, like I'm not getting anything. And today it was like chill. It was, everything was clear. Yeah, it was just
Cool.
like, I was, wow, that is so awesome.
Cool.
Not only here, in many other areas, just beautiful.
Clearing makes a difference. It really does. Yeah. And
Thank you.
there's a lot of details in this book. There's a lot to digest. So it's the reason I do the video, because there's a lot to digest. So cool. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye.